All right. Well, we got a great episode today. We're really excited about this guest. We have a fun backstory as to how him and I met. It's going to be really cool. He's built up the recruiting accelerator program. He started as an agency recruiter, then he was at Google, ran his own firm. Now he introduces people to the recruiting industry and helps them launch their business. John Chintanaroad, excuse me, founder of the recruiting accelerator. John, thanks for being here, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks. I got 80% of the way there on the name. I overthought it in
Yeah.
my head. I overthought it.
You did so well in rehearsal. Yeah,
I
it's
did so
Chintanaroad. Yeah,
Chintanaroad, yeah, and then I
yeah.
just that's what happens here. So, but everyone's kind of used to me butchering a couple names here and there. So,
All good.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great, man. Excited to be on here.
Yeah, well, I have to let everyone know first that John, when I first started the digital recruiter, it's not called the digital recruiter. So if you don't know, I officially started. I just went for it. I just picked a name. I posted on LinkedIn. I didn't do any research. I just got a URL or a domain, and I didn't think twice. And then a few months later, John connects with me. And for those that didn't know, my name that I started with was Recruiter Accelerator. John connects with me and I see recruiting accelerator. I'm like, I was like, this could clash. And I saw he was at it a little bit longer than I did. So I was like, hey, I don't want to confuse the world here. So I'll switch up the name. And that's how digital recruiter name was born. John was super gracious about it. He didn't even care. I was the only one that cared. But it was a cool way to connect. And then we got to talking, man. And it was just super cool to kind of see like your vision for your business, kind of your career, almost so many parallels
Yeah.
to my own. So dude, that's cool how kind of past and worlds can merge.
Yes. Yeah. And us connecting through mutual other people that we're working with, and now we're
Yeah,
talking about now we're collaborating on a few things. So
yeah.
it's been
That's
really
fun.
fun, man.
That's fun. It's fun to see like the recruiting coaches kind of come together to kind of finding ourselves on LinkedIn, or finding each other on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and kind of doing it the right way. It's been fun to I talked to Diane a couple weeks ago, to you today, to
Mhm.
Will, and like just to get it out there so people kind of realize like we're kind of linking arms, and whoever you resonate with, go work with.
Mhm.
But like they're kind of here to help, right? And like there's so much to learn, there's so much to do. So it's really cool. So well, let's start where we always start, which is how'd you get into recruiting?
Yeah, good question. So, like, I think a lot of people, I just fell into it because I feel like no one ever like goes to college for recruiting, right? Or they study it, they major in recruiting. You kind of just fall into it. Like, so a lot of people, I walked into a staffing company looking for a job. Like, hey, looking for work, and they ended up recruiting me to be a recruiter for them, right? Because recruiting agencies are always hiring too. So I thought, and I never thought about doing recruiting. I didn't even understand how it worked. I'm like, I thought recruiters like make a cut of the candidate salary. So as a candidate, as a job seeker, I would never use a recruiter because I don't want them to like take a chunk of my job offer, right? So, but of course, I later learned that hiring managers or the clients they serve, they have a budget set aside to hire these third party recruiting agencies for to help them solve their hiring pain. So, anyways, yeah, I got into it that way. I most started at like temp staffing. Like I remember months working on this one big client that was a pawn shop, literally a pawn shop in San Francisco. They had a different locations, and it was a tough fill because I had to find someone that would work for minimum wage, that was fluent in Spanish, and had a crystal squeaky clean criminal and background and credit check. So that would want to be a cashier at a pawn shop, right? It's called Best Collateral. I still remember like pitching that, and I did a good job. I filled a lot of those roles, and then of course, like made no money on it. And then like many years later, when I was placing like 200K salaried like senior level people, I'm like, oh man, I remember back when I used to cut my teeth placing pawn shop employees.
That's a great start. So you go there, and so in the agency world, did you work with any other industries or skill sets, like, or was it kind of just it started there, and that was like that's the deep end for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I started there, and it was Apple One was the staffing company, and
Oh
their
yeah.
whole model was like the candidate is the center of the universe. I'm like, okay, sure, and it felt really good. I got a lot of warm and fuzzies, like for helping people. Like, hey, John, thanks for getting me that pawn shop job. I can pay rent now, so it felt very good, like
Yeah.
karmically. But then my paycheck sucked. I'm like, man, like this sucks, right? I'm poor. This is not fun. And then I realized later on that I'm like, wait, I think the client's the center of the universe because they're the ones that actually pay the fees. And if I want to make more money in this, like have a more lucrative career, pay my bills, I need to place people that make more money than a pawn shop employee. So that gave me the sense to like migrate to more boutique firms specializing in more roles. So I ended up specializing in tech recruiting because technical people make higher salaries, and then our fees, our commission of the fees would go get higher. Right, so I did that, and I was really happy. Like at one point, I was at an agency making like 50% commission, no salary, but I was whenever the agency would earn like $20,000, $30,000 on that placement fee, right? Because the average fee is typically 20, 25%. I would get half of that. So it was great. Uh, but it wasn't until I got laid off from that last recruiting job that I thought to myself, like I've always wondered what it'd be like to start my own recruiting business, but never, I like a lot of people, I was waiting for the stars to align and all my
Yeah.
ducks to be in a row to finally feel ready to like branch off my own. But I got the boot. I got laid off along with my whole department because the agency I was working at wanted to sell, so they were streamlining stuff. So that's when I called my top two clients. I'm like, hey, sorry, just wanted to let you know here from me that I won't be able to send you any more resumes because the whole division is laid off. And my top two clients were like, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I want to keep working with you. You sent us great people. Why don't you start your own thing and we'll sign with you? So I'm like, wow. So if it wasn't for the encouragement of those two clients at the time, I probably wouldn't have the guts to. I wish I would have said I'd pulled a Jerry Maguire and just like stormed off and like
Just I'm out of here. Yeah.
yeah, grabbed like one other coworker and like stormed out. But no, I got kicked out. Was sad, depressed. Struggled. Then had the lucky enough to have clients say, hey, like we'll go with you, and that's why to this day I still think that for anyone who's looking to scratch that entrepreneurial itch in recruiting to get some support because there's so many people out there like you were saying earlier that can be that guiding hand, coach, mentor, friend, whatever. um, you don't have to do on your own, and without that external boost lifting you up, it's very hard to
Yeah.
muster up the courage and guts to just go put yourself out there, right?
Absolutely. So you went off on your own, what, like 2013 ish, right?
Yeah,
Like
before,
yeah.
yeah, like 6, 7 years ago.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you do that, and you get a couple clients right away. But yeah, talk to us about like what did that look like the first few months? Like, I guess kind of who helped you, or where did you realize like you need help? Right? Like you had the clients were ready to get people, but you probably had systems and everything with the old firm. So like, how'd you build your own firm?
Oh, sure. So I
Yeah.
was super scrappy over the weekend. I just came up with the name Aspire Recruiting, came up with a logo online, and just I took the old contract from my old boss that I used to send over the years and just took out their name, put in my name. I figured that like they paid some lawyer to write it, so why do I like it? That works for them, it'll work for
Smart,
me. I
smart.
sent it over, it came back countersigned. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm in business now. And at the time, I was, I was on unemployment, right? I got laid off. So I gave myself 90 days. All right, if 3 months this doesn't work, I can always go back and look for a recruiting job. So that was my safety net. Like, okay, I can always find a job. So that gave me the confidence to at least give it a shot, right? And then um, what was really funny was in the beginning, like I get the job orders from my clients, right? And then I would call the candidates, and the exact conversations, the process was exactly identical, except a couple times I'm like, "Hi, this is John from," and I almost said the old company name. Like, no, no, no. It took me a while to get used to saying my own company name, but other than that, on the recruiting, sourcing, interview management side, it was exactly the same, 100%.
Yeah.
And then what my biggest aha moment was when I made my first placement. It was like maybe like a 80K placement or something. I forgot. It was it was a network engineer, so $16,000. And when that wire came through, I'm like, holy cow! Like I did the exact same work I was doing for years, but instead of getting only a few thousand, I got 16,000. Like I had just doubled my income right away, going from 50% commission to 100%. And then I'm like, oh my god, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and when I ran to my old boss years later, she must have thought I was crazy because I'm like, oh my god, thank you so much for laying me off. Like, I've been able to have more success and more freedom and love life a lot better. Thank you so much. And she's like, oh. this guy's crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it was weird that like the whole time, I mean, I'm like, what was I paying? What was I giving up the majority of my billings for all these years in different agencies? It was like, okay, for an office that I didn't really need. Like candidates didn't want to come all the way to like meet you in your office to like talk to you about their search, right? Like just a quick phone call or Zoom call would suffice. Clients didn't really need you to like walk into their office or meet you in their office either. Back in the day, if you remember, like, a lot of people would do that, right? Hey, come over by my office. Like we'll have lunch. Let me introduce you to the
Oh, I did
team.
it 10 times a week minimum.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, or show up,
Absolutely.
yeah, like show up at their office with a binder, right, with a job order form, or like
Yeah.
taking out clients to lunch, or candidates to lunch. Nowadays, it's like, hey, man, like let's get to it, right? So they're like, okay, was it for the desk and phone? Like, no, especially now where working from home is a norm. Like, it's really become a level playing field, right? So, and I did that. So I realized what I was giving the majority of my billings for all these years was like the brand of the agency, right? And I was working for a well-known agency, but nowadays when I call clients, or at the time when I was calling new clients too, like nobody asked me where the name of my agency. And I realized that hiring managers don't care about the name of my recruiting business, my name, really, where I was from, how long I've been doing it. All they cared was about like, hey, do you have a candidate for me? Right? What do you have for me? Why are you calling? Do you have any value for me right now? And that's all. And then of course, candidates don't care about any of that stuff. They just care about like what job offer opportunity are you calling about. So that's when I realized that the value that you're giving up with your billing was like for basically really some tools that you can pay a couple $100 a month for out of pocket, and then you keep 100% of the fee. So it's kind of a no brainer when you look at it that way.
Everyone that knows me knows like now understands why we're talking, because this has
Mm-hmm.
been, I think, not even before I even knew you were doing your thing, and this is what I pieced together. I mean, it feels so familiar having come from Aerotech, and just
Yeah.
like I got the training and everything that was great. But then I left and made a couple placements on my own. I'm like, yeah, getting paid first is a lot more fun. And then I learned about automation and content
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. I'm like, you can get your name out there so fast nowadays, right? You can
Yep.
get in front of your market because you just got to be, if you're fishing, you got to be where the fish are, right? And for
Yep.
recruiters, LinkedIn, I mean, it's going to be LinkedIn for so many people, right? There's so much opportunity just alone on there. So it's like, oh, well, we just have to show them what we do well. Like, that's it, right? It's not, as you said, no one cares about the name or anything else. It's like, show them what you do well, and that's what it is, right? You don't have to. No one cares about the website really or anything else. It's like it's that piece of it. Can you get me the candidate faster? And it's not just saying that, right? It's showing how you actually get that done. Like that's always the
Mm-hmm.
key. So, no, I love that you saw it that way, because I think it's so important that people can overthink everything, and it's just like a couple tools and just a little like grit and showing up every day, like you can make it
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Well, especially that you don't have to go all in, right? Like a lot of people say, "Hey, like I love to do this, but I'm not ready to quit my day job. Like I don't have enough money in the bank." I'm like, "Well, then that's okay." Like most people that we work with, most of the people in our recruiting accelerator program are doing it part time on the side, like under the radar, and until they start getting their own couple clients, their first few placements, and then having basically, like they want to leave their corporate 9 to 5 or the agency job. So I tell people, cool, well, build your getaway car, like build this on the side, like like a side hustle, right?
Absolutely.
Build it, and then once you have two placements, I've never really worked with people that once they made their second placement, they have 40, 50K in the bank, that they're not like out of there. They're like
I'm
two
out.
weeks notice or less, and they're gone. They're like, I'm out. Like I see it now. It's no one placement, maybe it's a fluke. Two placements, they're gone.
Yep.
So I tell people you don't have to think about whether or not you want to go all in with your recruiting business. Like that decision will be made for you because it'll be a no brainer. You'll get pressure from new clients saying, "Hey, I got more job orders for you." Like, or "Hey, it's been a few days, Clark. Do you have anybody for me for the analyst role?" And you're like, "Oh shoot!" Like then you realize I'm losing money by not going all
Not
in.
being
Right?
there.
And so yeah, so you'll
Yeah.
get pushed out of your day job. You don't have to even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple people like that, and it's just they hung out. They've made even more than a couple placements, but they still hang on. And it's just like, dude, I was like, man, you can make so much more if
Mm-hmm.
you leave. But everyone's got their own
Yep.
situation. So
Yeah.
how? So I guess one of the things that because I want to get into how you recruiting etc came to be for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I also want to talk about just what you just mentioned, they build it on the side. So sometimes I get the, well, I can't do anything with my LinkedIn
Mhm.
until like it has to be kind of one or the other. So I guess how are you kind of helping if someone doesn't want to publicly display anything maybe on their LinkedIn? How are you guys kind of helping? What channels are you telling them like, oh well, this is just kind of the way you got to go about it, right? As you're building
Yeah.
on the side.
Very common question, right? Especially if they want to do a recruiting business in the same niche that they're already recruiting
Yeah.
for their job, right? Like, so yeah, so we have a strategy called launching in stealth mode. And we solve that in one of two ways. One is you use your LinkedIn profile. If you use your LinkedIn profile, the pro and the benefit is that when a hiring manager sees all this recruiting experience, they're like, okay, wow, like we like this person, they're the real deal. I want to speak with them. The con is your when you reach out to them, you can't be overly direct in terms of like, hi, my name is Clark. I have my own recruiting business, even though I work for somebody else right now. I have my own yeah, can I, would you like to jump on the call to talk about your hiring needs? Because if you accidentally send that to your boss's friend, unbeknownst to you, and they forward it over saying, hey, Betty, I think one of your people sent me this. You're gonna have that awkward like phone call, right? Or Slack message saying, hey, can we meet? What's going on here? So, and just that fear alone will prevent people from even launching. Right. So if you use your own profile, then your messaging has to be purposely vague so that it accomplishes two things. One, if that message gets back to your boss, you don't get in trouble. And two, it actually makes you look good, ideally, right? So, for example, let's say, imagine if you are a hiring manager, and I said, "Hey, Clark, we haven't spoken before, but I saw that you're hiring a senior DevOps engineer with AWS cloud experience. I actually just got off a phone with a cloud engineer who's very familiar with your niche. He's also in the cybersecurity field, like you. Unfortunately, we don't have anything for him on our side. So, but he asked me if I could point him in the right direction. Would you have any interest in this type of professional, right? Now, if that got back to your boss, it'll probably look like you were just trying to preserve the candidate experience because you said specifically, unfortunately, we don't have anything for him here on my desk, right? So that kind of like is a nice way. And of course, when they jump on the call, you let them know, hey, this candidate asked me to represent them myself confidentially. So I do a bit of consulting on the side. But of course, before you even jump on the call with that hiring manager, you have the opportunity to check on LinkedIn to see if you have any mutual connections, if they're connected to your boss or your company, right? So that's how you would go about doing that. The other way is to use someone else's LinkedIn profile, which we call it like an avatar profile, like a cousin, spouse, friend, husband, wife who either doesn't have LinkedIn or doesn't isn't active on LinkedIn. And you basically make them the named face of your business, and then when they book a call, you show up on the Zoom
Okay.
call, and
Make it,
that works very well too.
the
So
avatar.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I think it's just good for the listeners to know because I've definitely used some of those strategies, and yeah, you definitely have the good game plan for it. And some of those messaging and just those tweaks can make all the difference, right? Between being able to kind of
Yeah.
launch and not launch. Yeah.
One thing that I was talking to somebody the other day with is like if you are currently working, let's say as a corporate recruiter, or even an agency recruiter, you're in a unique position to not to do this to launch your recruiting business on the side because you have access to tons of candidates. You have a flow of candidates coming in your way every single day. Now, of course, you never want to like pull some. If you have someone interviewing for your client at your job or your company, you don't want to like then submit them to one of your own private clients, right? That would be no bueno.
Yeah.
But you probably have a lot of silver medalists in your pipeline,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
basically, people that were this close to getting the job offer but they didn't get it. Now, if you work, let's say you're an in-house recruiter and your company passes on them, well, when would they ever revisit them? Probably never, or at least years until whatever skill they thought they were light in, they could level up, right? But basically, that candidate is dead to your company, but they're not. But just because they didn't get the job offer doesn't mean someone is not going to love to hire them, right? Who knows? They might be even overqualified for your position, so they're that good. You can bring them on, right? Or if you work at an agency, you shop them around your clients. None of your clients are the right fit for them, but you know that someone's going to hire them And what's going to happen is, let's say that's your candidate, they know you, like you, trust you over weeks of working with them, you, and now you can't place them. Now that you kind of like release that fish back in the sea, and
Yeah.
someone like me who calls them, a recruiter, saying, "Hey, buddy, I got something for you." I place them, and I make that $35,000 fee that really should have gone to you, because they would have loved to keep working with you because they already like you, they already trust you. But because you didn't have anywhere for them, some other guy swoops in, places them, and puts that money in their pocket where that should have gone to you.
That is, I mean, just being able to see the opportunity and kind of navigate it, because that could be delicate, right? There's a wrong way to do all this for sure,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely a right and an ethical way as well. And I mean, I think for me, a company will let you go in 2 seconds, so it's like make sure that you're adhering to your contract. But like as you said, the silver medalist, I love that term because there is so much that people get so worried about the clients and the non compete and all that. But I'm like, there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of other stuff going on here that is, as you said, one man's trash, another man's treasure type of situation. And just being able to have that foresight and develop that rapport, just kind of being able to see the opportunity, I think is so important. I think that's a huge first step to being successful in recruiting and sales, right? You got to be able to kind of get creative and kind of know where you can create some, right? That MPC approach works for a reason, right? And kind
Right.
of putting candidates in front of client hiring managers and all that. Like it works for a reason. And yet if you build that rapport, people want to work with you. Like go make it happen for them, right? Like go get
Yeah.
them in front of people.
Yeah, I love how you said be proactive, because when I would share this with some people, they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I would do that." And I would say, "Well, let me ask you this: What if you call a candidate and say, 'Hey, bad news! Like, you didn't get the job offer, went to someone else, maybe just a little ahead of you in the interview process, or someone that came internally referred. So, unfortunately, I was really rooting for you, but unfortunately, the client's passing.' Now, if that candidate went and said, 'Hey, well, do you have anything else for me? Like, you already know my comp requirements, my skills, what I'm looking for, what I'm not looking for, my travel availability, my whole you know my whole
Yeah, the
situation.
whole
Like,
story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, do you have any? Can you open up other doors for me? Like, I'd love for you to represent me to other companies. Like, would you take them on?" And they're like, "Well, if they said all that, then sure, I would." So
Yeah.
the answer is yes,
Yes.
but one is they go out and they create that engagement. The second one is they're just passive, just waiting for things to come their way, and that never works, right? In recruiting, speed and almost like a little proactiveness is essential.
You got to get after it every day. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's got to be strategic. And I know kind of one of your things is as little as you want or as much as you want, which I would agree with in a sense, right? But some people, I think, Matt, say they want this, but they're not willing to do that at the same time. And I think that's where you kind of have to find the line. It's like you're allowed to work however hard you want at building your own thing, but there are ways to be proactive without working 80 hours a week, right? You could do
Hmm.
that and do it for 5, 10 hours a week. But I think that is the approach and the way you're thinking about it. Like you do have to be creative and innovative and not, it's not completely, better to ask for forgiveness and permission, but it's inferring, it's knowing a candidate would be absolutely open to, you didn't get this job, but I just sent your resume to, or redacted, sent your information to 5 other managers on your behalf. Well, okay. Like based on the companies and the types of places you said you would want to go for your next move. Wow, even
Yep.
better, right? Like, and it's not that crazy. I mean, it takes 30 minutes to figure out 5 people to send, that to, right? In that piece. So it is just kind of like that. That's always who I've seen is the people that get it like right away and always get the results when they think that way.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge is like to be able to do that while holding on a 9 to 5 job, you have to have processes, tools, something in place. Otherwise, by the time you're off work, you're tired, you want a beer, glass of wine, you have family commitments, social
Yeah.
engagements. It'll never happen. Like, it just doesn't. It's like trying to go to the gym at like 9 p.m. at night after a long day. You're like, I'll go tomorrow. It'll just never happen
Yeah.
unless you have a process or high level of accountability, a trainer there that you paid money to waiting for you. But I think what's essential these days, they used to be a nice to have, but I think it's a must have now, are things like automation
Yeah.
and tools, because then when you have your NPC message or your reach out message to hiring managers, you can handwrite yourself, make it your own, put in your own voice. but then put into a machine that sends it out for you 7 days a week while you're sleeping. And when you wake up, you get responses from VP level hiring managers saying, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. Like, can we talk? Or do you fill this type of role? Or what are your fees?" Right? Like, the moment we introduce automation to this, our 1.0 version of recruiting Accelerator was all manual. It's what I learned back when there was no automation. The
Yeah.
2.0, once we installed automation, it was night and day. Like, results just skyrocket for everybody. And that's how they're able to like have a 9 to 5 job and just periodically check their LinkedIn inbox, their business email, and see hiring managers raising their hand, replying back. So in a way, like they only have to reply to warm leads if you have these systems, automations in place, right?
Awesome.
But word of warning though, like before people just go and try to like do it themselves, like as you probably know, if you do it wrong, like on LinkedIn, you can go into like LinkedIn jail for like a couple of days. And as a recruiter, that's like a death sentence, right? Like
Oh yeah.
you'll no bueno if you lose your LinkedIn for a couple of days even. So LinkedIn, you have to do things and do it the right way with the right tools, the right parameters, the right limits. And with email automation, if you try to like watch some YouTube videos on like how to do email automation, and then you try that for your recruiting business right off the bat without doing things like proper domain warming up and creating a burner domain, these technical things that I didn't know, then you can easily have a one-way ticket to spam jail. And once you're
Yep.
there, you can't get out. So there's these little nuances. So I think in the whole process of starting your own recruiting business and being successful, it's not what you don't know that hurts you. It's like it's what you don't know that you don't know
Yeah.
that. And because recruiting is so lucrative, the costs are low, the margins are high, you can do it from anywhere. There's all these benefits. The biggest con is that it's competitive. And so when you reach out, you go to the market, you talk to hiring managers, the margin of error, the wiggle room that you have to mess up is not very much. Like one, it's not very forgiving. It's like dating these days, right? If you want to go date and you want to attract an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 type of person to date, like you have one mistake, one social faux pas, and you're blown out, right? So it's not
That's
very forgiving. So I'm glad I'm
it,
married and
it.
I'm not in that scene, but it's tough, man.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like having the piece of lettuce stuck in your tooth, in your
Yeah,
teeth, and you meet
something.
you meet your spouse's boss or something, right? Like it's like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
man, like ruin the
yeah.
first. I'm actually It's a really interesting point you just brought up. I think you've articulated something that I've been trying to kind of tell people is a lot of what we do, people are like, oh, I'm going to get this tool to do that versus, investing in coaching and all that. It's like, you don't know how the next call is going to go. Like, do you know what to say on the next call? Do you know how to approach it? Do you know if you're messing it up? Right? You have no
Mm.
idea because and also telling them like the competition is fierce. It's a low barrier to entry industry with a high bar to success. And if you don't come at it correct, you're going to get blown out of the water by someone else. That is
Yep.
because there's not a lack of people reaching out, right? But it's knowing the approach, seeking to understand, right? Coming across like an expert, leveraging your strengths, the subject matter expertise, all that, but like knowing the ebbs and flows of the conversation with that hiring manager is so critical. I mean, you could have a great first 20 minutes, but completely blow it on the last 10 minutes,
Hmm.
right? Maybe fumbling, talking about fees or anything else. And so
Yes.
like that's a big, a big part of it and a big part of the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had a sales coach who said it really once to me, which is the difference between winning or not winning, or in recruiting, the difference between getting a signed service agreement at full fee or not is like the Olympics between gold and silver. It'll come down often to like a fraction of a second.
Yep.
One little thing that you did that you weren't supposed to do, or that you didn't know you weren't supposed to do, or something that you forgot to do, like you forgot to ask a question, or they asked you a question that you didn't quite answer it fully confidently, or they
Yeah.
threw you a curveball that you weren't prepared for, and like just that little thing can blow up a deal. And for me, whenever I engage with a new hiring manager, a new prospective client, I don't think of them as like, okay, this is going to be maybe one placement, 20K, and move on. This could become a key account that gives you repeat job orders over years that could be worth $250,000 worth of business from this one client. And all comes down to, and it's not like you have multiple at bats. Okay, that strike. Like let me go swing again, right? If you swing and a miss, you're done. Like it's a one call type of thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, hey, let's do a second call to talk more. It's like either by the end of that first call, they're like, yeah, let's give it a shot. let's give you these job boards to start on, or it's a hey thanks but no thanks, or even worse, it's like hey get back to me next quarter, let me think about it, which is just a nice way of saying no. But to the untrained ear, they get happy ears. Like, cool, I got a couple of people to say follow with me next quarter, and they're chasing and they get ghosted, and right,
Yeah.
like that's no fun either.
If you don't figure out that they actually have it, then yes, right. If it's truly like a timing thing, yeah. But if they're just pushing, kicking the can down the road, then for sure,
Hmm.
absolutely. All right, so I had to take a little quick break uh, for over here. So now we're back, and I want to continue with really kind of the start of recruiting accelerator. You were running your own business, running your own agency. What inspired you to start recruiting accelerator?
Yeah, I never actually even thought of it. What it kind of ended up coming to me again, kind of like passively, where I sold my HC at the time. I think after 5 6 years of running it, I felt this itch to want to do more, like something more creative, something a little more, yeah, something different, right? Less of the same rinse, wash, repeat, right? Of getting a job order, filling a job order, getting a job
Yeah.
order. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great, done really well, it's fun. But I think, but after 5 6 years, I just got that itch to do something different. So after I sold my stake of the agency to my partner, I started getting reached out to by old coworkers from the previous agencies, including the one where I got laid off from, and they're like, "Hey, my boss changed my commission structure. I'm pissed. I'm finally gonna branch out on my own, right? Or whatever. Like they promised me a promotion. I didn't get it. I want to start doing this now. Can you show me the ropes? Can you give me some pointers? I saw that you did it, John, and you done well. And so just me helping my old coworkers and friends for free was where I got started. And what's crazy is like just by showing them kind of what I learned for myself and my business, they were able to get results like way faster. Like they were getting new clients within weeks and placements within the first month, or multiple placements within the first month or two. And I'm like, man, I wish I had someone like me from day one, just to like, hey,
Yeah.
by the way, like, and it's not like I never see myself as like a guru or anything like that. I've always just seen like myself as someone who is climbing the same mountain, right? We're all climbing Mount Everest. I just happen to have started a little bit ahead, so I know, hey, avoid that face. That one place is really windy. That's really rocky. This is a much easier climb, and like I left some ropes for you there, so just use a rope if you want. It's a lot easier. So that I'm like that guy, just a little bit ahead of people who haven't yet started. So that's how I got started. And then later on, I'm like, well, maybe I can make this my thing, and I started having one-on-one clients. And then what ended up happening was I just ended up repeating myself the same thing over and over again to every single person I was coaching. I'm like, I need to really like record this so that way I can send everyone the recording. It's easier, and I can deliver my thoughts better and more organized in the recording. And that's how I decided to, and it evolved to what it is now, which is a full blown program. We've helped over 300 people now over the last 4 years or so, kind of successfully launched, and we have case studies linked to recommendations. So I feel really grateful for that. And I think what got me, like before getting that $20,000 placement and putting that fee in my pocket, gave me that like dopamine hit, right? That really like
Yeah.
high feeling. But now it's when I see someone else do it, and they say, "Hey, John, I quit my 9 to 5 job that I hated for years. My wife joined me in this business, and we're making a thing. And now we're traveling Hawaii while still while still recruiting." And like that gives me the warm and fuzzies now. Like calling
Yeah.
back to that, right? Like that gives me like that sense of purpose. And yeah, because I still remember the struggles. I still have the scars from making all these mistakes I didn't know you weren't supposed to make, starting my own recruiting business. That now when I help other people navigate those waters easier, it just is very fulfilling. So I feel grateful for that.
That's awesome, and I'm with. I know you help a lot more people kind of just get into the industry, which
Hmm.
is great, and it's so needed because it kind of what it did for me getting into the industry and then eventually getting it on my own, but like just the freedom it allows, and I can't believe almost like my life now versus when I started out working, just how different I look at work and a career and just like that fulfillment. And recruiting can bring that, whether it's a cash flow business. and it launches other
Mhm.
ventures down the road, or it is the thing that you can do. And now that people need to be remote, things are way more expensive now than they were 10 years ago. And so it's like sometimes like you kind of have to be remote, right? If you do have childcare or whatever else, like it
Yeah.
is so rewarding. Like, and I know, I luckily I know the feeling you're talking about when you get those messages from people. It's like I had a way better conversation, and now I got Rex, and I got an agreement signed, and like they're gonna close, and like I have direction, I have a plan, or this placement made, or I got this, I got 3 more inbound leads, or I made this placement. It's like, wow, like yeah, they are doing better than even I was doing at this,
Mhm.
which is crazy. So because then you start to
Yeah.
see like, man, arming talented people had different skill sets or in their own industry, and like seeing them take off. It's like, well, I could never do that in healthcare. I could never do that in accounting and finance, but like if they can with these strategies and tactics, and like that's pretty cool. Um,
Yep.
yeah, that's awesome. What what are some of the challenges that you see, like common challenges, first 3 months, first 6 months? It's like getting into the recruiting, getting industry, kind of starting your own thing, side hustle or full time. Like, what are some of the main challenges that you see?
Uh, yeah, I think the biggest challenge I see is when people rely on willpower and time to move the needle.
Hmm,
Uh,
interesting. Yeah.
I remember, yeah, the reason why I rebooted my program and did a 2.0 version a couple of years ago was when I had a a student ask for a refund, and it was the first time it's ever happened. He goes, "Hey, John, I followed your thing, which is to like roll my sleeves, set up, block out some time in the day to just reach out to hiring managers, send them." I did that. I just didn't have enough time in the day. I got 3 kids, a busy job, all that stuff, and so I just never had the time. And I tried my best, but yeah, it just didn't work out. And after I felt bummed, I gave him the refund. Like, you know what? Sure, you're right. You followed my thing, it didn't work. That's on me, and I still have money back guarantee on my stuff, right? So I gave him the refund, and then when I thought to myself, like, instead of like, hey, this what did this guy do wrong? Why didn't he succeed? I thought to myself, okay, how did my program fail him? Right? What can I do if I were to take 100% accountability? How did I fail him? And I realized I didn't make this easy enough for him. I required him to have willpower, time, energy, and focus to carve out the little precious time he has outside of his job, his career, his family, his leisure, his sleep, to carve out for this, versus, hey, here's a system, implement it, and it'll run for you, right? Like the automations, things like that. A system to follow to make it almost no brainer, to make it easy. So I
Yeah.
didn't make it easy enough. So then I think when people require to carve out time to work on their business, those people I feel fail a lot. When people are talking about, hey, I have these systems I've installed that run and allow me to scale my efforts and allow me to be strategic in what I do, like that person gets results. I can just from them describing their endeavors, right?
Absolutely. Well, because you have to have the system. I love that approach you had, and what you said about taking that ownership with the programming, like that hit me. Right, I've given some refunds for people that I just didn't like within a week or two. Right, if I didn't like working with them, that's one thing. Right, because
Yeah,
I think you have
yeah,
to be
yeah.
coachable. Those are the main ones. Again, only had one where was it was interesting. It was going through the whole thing, but I set him up. Like, we got to focus on sales. I We gave him all the stuff, but he didn't do all the things that we told him to do. So I was
Yeah,
like, dude, you have 10 things I've told you to do that you haven't done. Like,
yeah.
go do them and come back to me. And I introduced him to people. He had Rex said he was working on split partnerships. So he had a ton of opportunity. But I think it's very interesting with the refund piece of it, right? It's happened less than, I mean, asked for it once and I've given it twice, right? In two and a
Yeah.
half years. It is really that ownership of a coach. Is it on me or is it on them? And I always look at it, what can I fix first? Like, what did we do? And I love that you look at it that way. I have a lot of respect for you for saying that, because it's a dicey subject, right? But there is
Hmm.
that work. But it's like, as you said, we can give you the system. You still have to do something. Like, you have to do something. You have to give it a shot, right? But it should be kind of sharpening that iron over time, right? That feedback should sharpen our iron in the program and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be really the main thing that where people struggle is they don't have a process to implement, nor do they have a process to consistently get better each time,
Yep.
right? Like they don't have a process for a sharpening a sword, meaning they don't have coaches, mentors to review their calls, to review their scripts they're running on. They don't even have a script. Do they have a call structure that they're running on every client call, or are they kind of winging it, just leveraging their experience and confidence? Or do they have a process for pre-interview, post-interview, pre-offer, a checklist for after they get this offer letter? Do they know how to rehearse a role play, them giving their 2 weeks to their boss, so that way on that day they don't get nerves and their boss sells them on staying with a counter. All these things that they don't
Yeah.
know that they're supposed to anticipate, because like I said, the getting a placement or not, getting a $30,000 fee or not, it comes down to the wire most times. And usually those things could have been prevented if you knew exactly,
What you were told.
if you have a process that's built in to prevent counter offers, to prevent client managers from this, or to prevent stuff like that. So being prepared and having this all laid out, because recruiting is, on one hand, it's not rocket science. You're talking to people, you're sending emails, and sending calendar invites, right? So basically, that's, if you were to
Yes.
simplify, that's what that is, right? The jumping on Zoom calls, but the skill and art takes years to learn.
Yeah.
And that's if you're lucky to be cross trained in an agency where you gain not just the recruiting sources, candidate fulfillment side of the business, but you're also cross trained on business development, prospecting, negotiation, sales. Then on top of that, you will never even have exposure to the business accounting, invoicing side, because that's always handled by somebody else. So if you're lucky enough to have all that cross training, then I think you have a good shot at this. But usually have some pieces of the puzzle, but not enough to really pull it off at a high enough level where you could competing with somebody like yourself who has all those pieces solved, right?
Yeah.
So and I think it's, so I guess, the summarize, like the do-it-yourselfers who who are like, hey, I just run into a wall over and over again. Like they keep doing the same thing over and over again. So like it's
It,
like with anything, right? It's the same thing.
it's that mindset so important to get. I don't mind making a mistake or messing up, but man, I
Yeah.
do not want to make it twice.
Yep.
And so like that's the, I mean, that's what this is for. That's why we do this. It's like you got to go get the reps, but like we'll give you some systemized reps, right? And that's what you will do. And it's like,
Mhm.
and then we're here to help you understand what it all means, and right, and to keep progressing forward. And like that's how you do this thing, right? There is a level of that ownership, the coachability on both sides, right? And I think that's, you have to have that as a coach. That's why you have the 4.0 now, right? Like you keep
Yeah.
improving it. It kind of requires that every single year. I've done the same thing. I think I'm on 2 or 3.0 already. I don't even know what version I'm on, right? Because it requires that. Right, because there are so many nuances. They said to the art of recruiting. It's the same thing with the art of coaching recruiting, right? It takes time to kind of, it's an evolving process. And I think with that understanding, man, people can really go in either one of our programs and take it really far, like
Yep.
really far. Kind of just be
Absolutely.
able to embrace the unknown, right? But
Mm-hmm.
with some known systems. Yeah,
100%.
cool. All right, well, let's wind it down. What is next for Recruiting Accelerator 4.0? What's 2024 and beyond looking and bringing for you?
Yeah, a few things I'm excited about. One is we have a recruiting accelerator program which solves like a level one problem. I realized,
Yeah.
I thought it was the problem, the end all be all problem, which is how do I start a business, get launched, get my first few clients, make my first few placements. Like that's the main thing. Until I realized, getting emails from alumni saying, "Hey, John, can you help me out? I'm in a tough place," meaning that like I have too many clients, too many job orders. I'm working 60 hours a week. I feel like I'm back at my job, except this time I own my job and I get paid well. Don't get me wrong, but I'm stressed. It's not fun. I don't know how to scale. I don't. I tried hiring people, it didn't work out. Managing them became a nightmare. So we have a program we're launching next month called Recruiting Scale that solves for how to scale your business. So that way you're not the bottleneck of your business, right? You're not in the weeds,
Yeah,
and you can work on your business, not in the business. So we have that, which I'm excited that you can be a collaborator with me on that. And
absolutely.
the main thing is, rather than having me, oh, this is John's thing, I decided just to partner and collaborate with people like you, people who are subject matter experts in their particular field. Because, like I said, I never see myself as a guru that I know everything. And so, and I really, people who are ready to scale their recruiting business, like they're already sharp people. They know a lot. So I feel like, I don't know if I can even give them all the things that they need. How about I just find people who can contribute their expertise and kind of put everyone together in the same room and offer that training, offer that support at that next level. So that's the main thing for 2024 is kind of helping people beyond the first few placements. So I'm really excited about that.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm excited to be part of it and kind of get to know your crew a little bit more and vice
Hmm.
versa. I think there's some big things
Yeah.
ahead and some cool collaborations. So
Thank you. And you're
good.
doing some amazing stuff with content marketing, things that I've never done. So, like, I see you as a leader, then someone that I'm going to be following, learning from when it comes to those areas too. That back in the time, 10 years ago when I was running my agency, like content marketing wasn't really a thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's always more to learn from everybody.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. And this was fun, right? It's
Yeah.
great to do, and just to kind of have out there. I'm excited for people. I got kind of listen to this and see like it doesn't have to be always a battle, right? There is an abundance mindset out here that us coaches have to practice as well. And no, it's been great. So we can find you definitely on LinkedIn. We'll have the LinkedIn URL, your website,
Mhm.
anywhere else that we got to look for you,
No,
John.
that's good. I have a new
Mhm.
YouTube channel now that has lots of free content that
That's a
I pour everything in there. I give you strategies in there, and of course, I have a training video on my website. You can go to that. We'll kind of break down our 6 step process, and you can.
yeah.
I've had people like just follow the scripts and follow the process from my free training that they'll get clients and placements. So you can go really far with that. It's really brass tacks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, check that out. Um, check out the links. Check out everything. John, appreciate you, man. And we'll talk soon. Until next time,
Yes, sir.
that's it. All. So happy hunting, y'all.